Um, yeah, it's been quite a busy year for me. There's been a lot going on, so it was kind of surprised getting through to what is it, the end of May, and only just finding out that Jeff Beck passed away at the beginning of this year. So I was a little surprised and pretty gutted to hear about that. Uh, I want to talk to you about uh, Jeff Beck and his influence on me, and he's without a shadow of a doubt one of my I don't know, top five, top 10, easily top 10, probably top five favorite artists. And when I first so yeah, I think I was in my early 20s when I was first introduced to Jeff Beck. It was a boat building boss of mine, actually. He introduced me to this album here, and I think he may have actually given me this album, but that was You Had It Coming, which came out in about 2000 or 99, one of the two. That's what's left of the original copy that I had. The CD is, I had it, I used and abused it, and it was in cars and everything else, so that's long gone. I'm sure I've got another copy here somewhere. But I absolutely love this album to bits, and I can still play it from start to finish and enjoy it so much. And This was sort of the beginning for my love affair with Jeff Beck and his guitar, and also his he's another petrol head. I don't know if those are actually his hands in the album cover, but certainly he's a complete petrol head. And one of the tracks in here, I think the opening track in this album is called Roy's Toy, which is and it's got the soundtrack of a V8 starting up and being revved up. And I think Roy's Toy is quite a famous hot rod in the hot rodding world. So yeah, that's in there. Absolutely love it. And Jeff Beck introduced me to so many different genres of music and different artists as well. And something that I love very much about him is that he is not afraid to put other artists in the limelight. It's thanks to the albums that I really got into from him, where I learned about Jennifer Batten and Imogen Heap and Imelda May and some amazing artists, and Tal Wilkenfield. I mean, that was incredible seeing videos of him playing with this young Tal who would have been, I don't know, like early teens or something, and giving her the limelight. It's a really cool thing to see on those live videos where he gives time and space to an artist to be exposed and to feel what it's like to be playing in front of more than just a few people. And so I've really enjoyed that. And I think what really struck me the most, and particularly with this album, but in a lot of other albums of his as well, I say a lot of others. There are three that are the big ones for me. So it was like I said, I was in my early 20s. Well, Jeff would have been like well late into his career by then. Long before that, in the 70s and 80s, he was playing with doing the thing with the Yardbirds, and then playing with Stevie Ray Vaughan and with Eric Clapton and whoever. And you can read up on the history and what he's done and who he's done it with. And I think he was sort of that close to being a member of the Stones at one point. And I think he sort of said something to the effect of, I didn't fancy playing the same three chords for the rest of my life, so I did something different. Very, very fond. But the way these albums, so You Had It Coming, Who Else, which was in about the same year or very close to, or not very far apart. This one was 1999, so I think the year after he did You Had It Coming, so it was two in succession. And then a few years later, Emotion and Commotion. and so that's really, that's my experience of Jeff. I've had to play around with a few of his earlier albums, and they're not particularly my cup of tea. I like them, but these three in particular are ones that I really, really enjoy. And I think a lot of it is down to simplicity. About, they're not. He doesn't typically go for overly complicated tracks. So many of them are just the guitar and a real simple bass line, and not many accompaniments. And I really like that, and it taught me an awful lot as an audiophile. It helped me to focus on something and really understand what it was that I was listening to, and how to improve the sound that I was trying to produce. When you've got something simple, and the way that it was produced, where you have the guitar as the main feature, it's the vocal track, it's the vocal part of the track. So you've got that center stage and coming out at you, and so many of those tracks have become my test tracks for stereo, to really understand what I'm hearing. In fact, the last two tracks, and I'm damned if I can remember the names right now, but the last two tracks on You Had It Coming, one of them is his exchange with a bird. So the bird's tweeting in the background, and you can hear it up in a tree somewhere, and then you can hear Jeff's response with his guitar, and it's a real cool interplay. But yeah, beautifully simple, and so it really helps to be able to hear that, and to really understand, really sort of like, wow, okay, this is my imaging, this is where that bird is perched on that tree, and that's where it, it's how the sound is echoing into my space, and this is where he's playing from, and this is the, really, really sort of, having that completely focused attention on the guitar sound, on the sound of him strumming a string, and the sound that string makes, and the thing, the things that he's doing to the guitar to make it make the sounds that are coming out. Yeah, absolutely love all of that. That exposure to different genres, and those three albums cover such an eclectic range of styles, which I love so much. I mean, the one, Emotion and Commotion, is hilarious. It's literally that one track will be a really cruisy number, and then the next one will be absolutely raucous as anything. So they're really good fun. I haven't got the track listing for this right now. I couldn't tell you what they're called, but so in Who Else, Brush with the Blues. It's such a fantastic recording. Weirdly, in it, there is sort of about mid track. There's some amplifier hum. It sounds like an earth hum or something, or a bit of feedback. And it's weird that he left that in that recording, but it is a fantastic recording, and it's so much fun. He just starts with this just real cruisy, just a couple of blues riffs, and as the song progresses, it's like he's having an argument with his band, with his percussion members, and they get more raucous, and he gets more raucous, and it just turns into quite a leery affair, and then smooths off again, and it's an absolute classic. And if you find on YouTube, there's a recording of him playing that in front of, it's in the White House, he plays it, and it's an absolutely fantastic recording of a really good live version of that song. But speaking of other stuff to find on YouTube, there is, if you look for, I think it's called Car Crazy, and it's Maguire's, I can't remember. You'll find it, Car Crazy, and Google it with Jeff Beck, and it's the interview of Jeff Beck talking about all of these hot rods and his love affair with American muscle cars, and it's quite a charming interview. It's a very American show, so you'll have to put up with the sort of the cheesiness of it, but just listening to Jeff talk about those cars and what they meant to him and where they came from, and it's really cool. It gives you a really interesting insight into who he is as a person, and by all accounts, he seems like a absolute legend. And there's another video of him talking about his guitars, and he goes through about maybe half a dozen or more of his personal guitars and tells the story of how he got them, and what they all mean to him, and he sits there plucking away on them, and that's a really cool interview as well. So yeah, the guy's made a massive impact in my musical world. These albums absolutely are, I've played them all to death, and yet not to death. I love them to bits, and I'll continue to play them. Other tracks that I love so much, the one I Put a Spell on You with Joss Stone, and that's another thing is Jeff's not afraid to do a cover here and there, and do it justice, I reckon. And Joss Stone in there is just phenomenal. I mean, her voice is just absolutely just amazing. And again, another great example of just putting someone else on center stage and just going, no, this is your song. This is for you. So that was really cool. And Lilac Wine, another absolute classic. I can't remember who did that first. I think it was Jeff Buckley who made it famous, but I don't think it's his song. But Imelda May's voice in there is absolutely haunting, and that's what got me into her. And then I sort of went through her rockabilly albums, and then some of her later albums, which are a bit more pensive, I would say, but equally fantastic. And again, a bit of a red herring, but Imelda May's Black Tears, she does that on the Jules Holland show, and that's also, again, you'll find that on YouTube, and it's an absolutely fantastic performance, well worth having a look at. What else have I got to say? I think that's about it. I mean, what an amazing influence on my listening experience, and opening me up to these different artists and different genres, and giving me 3 albums that I will cherish for the rest of my life, and I will enjoy forevermore. So if you haven't listened to these 3, give them a go, see what you think. Cheers, Jeff. Thanks for all the fine material, and to the rest of you out there, if you haven't already listened to these albums, give them a listen. And to those of you who know what I'm talking about, we'll have a drink for him and say cheers. All right, ta.